Hi there. Today, we are going to talk about the story of Emily, a girl who was thrown into a parallel world in a terrifying dream, and after discovering a mysterious book, fought against the dark forces that intended to destroy reality.
The old radio crackled on Emily's nightstand, spitting static and fragmented melodies. She usually turned it off, but tonight, lulled by the gentle hum, she drifted into a fitful sleep. The dream started innocently enough. Her childhood home, bathed in the golden light of a summer afternoon, but the familiar facade soon crumbled. The windows stretched into impossible angles, the lawn deepened into an abyss, and a cold wind whistled through the gaps in reality. Before we start, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Storietional, and stay till the end. And if you love horror stories, check out our Scary Stories playlist. Emily tried to scream, but no sound escaped her lips. She was trapped, an observer in her own nightmare. Then, the house vanished entirely, replaced by an endless cityscape of obsidian towers. Twisted streets snaked between them, devoid of life, choked with shadows that seemed to writhe with a life of their own. She woke with a gasp, heart hammering against her ribs. The radio still hummed, its distorted melody now laced with a faint, unsettling whisper, dismissing it as a lingering echo of the dream. She switched it off, but as she reached for her phone, a wave of dizziness washed over her. The familiar glow of the screen blurred, then flickered, replaced by a swirling vortex of color. Panic seized her. She squeezed her eyes shut, willing the disorientation to pass. When she opened them again, her room was gone. The soft carpet beneath her feet had turned to cold, damp cobblestones. The warm, familiar scent of lavender and vanilla was replaced by a cloying, metallic odor, like rusted iron and ozone. Emily stumbled to her feet, her mind struggling to comprehend the impossible. She stood in a narrow alleyway, hemmed in by towering buildings that scraped against a perpetually twilight sky. The structures were unlike anything she'd ever seen. Constructed from dark, porous stone, they seemed to breathe with an unnatural rhythm. Windows, too many and too small, stared down at her like vacant eyes. Silence pressed down on her, a suffocating blanket that amplified the frantic beat of her heart. She called out, her voice swallowed by the oppressive atmosphere. "Hello? Is anyone there?" Only the echo of her own fear answered. This wasn't her neighborhood. This wasn't even her city. She was utterly and completely lost, adrift in a reality that defied explanation. The cobblestones were slick with a viscous, black substance that clung to her shoes. As she cautiously walked, she noticed that the shadows seemed to stretch and contort in ways that defied the angle of the fading light. They weren't just shadows. They were something else, something predatory. She reached the end of the alley and peered out onto a wide, deserted street. More obsidian buildings lined the thoroughfare, their facades adorned with grotesque carvings of faces frozen in silent screams. A chilling wind swirled dust and scraps of paper around her feet. The architecture was both alien and disturbingly familiar. It reminded her of Gothic cathedrals, but twisted and corrupted, as if a malevolent force had reshaped them to its own design. Taking a deep breath, she stepped onto the street. The cobblestones were uneven, making each step a precarious balancing act. She chose a direction at random, hoping to find some sign of civilization, some clue to her whereabouts. As she walked, she noticed something odd about the street itself. It seemed to stretch on forever, the buildings receding into the distance without ever truly getting closer. It was as if the perspective was somehow skewed, defying the laws of Euclidean geometry. Then, she heard it. A faint whisper carried on the wind. It was barely audible, a sibilant murmur that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Emily, her blood ran cold. How could anyone know her name? She whirled around, scanning the empty street. Nothing, only the silent buildings and the shifting shadows. She quickened her pace, her heart pounding in her chest. The whispers intensified, weaving around her like a suffocating shroud. Emily, lost, The words were fragmented, indistinct, but their intent was clear. She was being watched. She was being hunted. She turned a corner, hoping to escape the relentless whispers. The street ahead was identical to the one she had just left, a seemingly endless loop of obsidian and shadow. Despair began to creep in, a cold, insidious poison that threatened to overwhelm her. Then, she saw it. A single door, set into the side of one of the buildings. Unlike the others, which were made of dark, unadorned wood, this door was crafted from polished brass. It gleamed in the twilight, a beacon of hope in the oppressive gloom. Hesitantly, she approached the door. As she reached out to touch the handle, a sharp pain shot through her hand. She recoiled, her fingers throbbing. Looking closer, she saw that the handle was covered in tiny, needle-sharp barbs. Despite the pain, she felt an irresistible compulsion to open the door. It was as if something inside her, something buried deep within her subconscious, was urging her forward. Ignoring the pain, she gripped the handle and pushed. The door swung inward with a silent groan, revealing a dark, narrow hallway. A faint, flickering light emanated from the depths of the building, promising answers, or perhaps only more questions. She hesitated for a moment, her mind warring between fear and desperation. The whispers continued to swirl around her, urging her on. Emily, inside. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to give it a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. If you want to hear more stories like this, make sure to subscribe to Storietional. There are always exciting and thrilling tales waiting for you here. Taking a deep breath, she stepped through the doorway, leaving the desolate street behind. The door slammed shut behind her, plunging her into near darkness. She was trapped, alone, in a place that felt both alien and disturbingly familiar. The journey to find out where she was, how she got there, and how to get out had only just begun. And whatever was speaking her name wanted her there. The air inside the hallway was thick with dust and the scent of decay. A single candle flickered at the far end, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. The walls themselves were lined with portraits, their subjects obscured by grime and age. But even in the dim light, Emily could sense their eyes following her, watching her every move. She moved cautiously down the hallway, her hand outstretched, feeling her way along the rough stone wall. The silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of her own breathing and the occasional creak of the floorboards beneath her feet. As she approached the candle, she noticed that the portraits were becoming clearer. The faces were gaunt and pale, their eyes filled with a haunting sadness. Many of them wore archaic clothing, suggesting they were from a bygone era. But something about their expressions, they seemed too real, too human. It was as if their souls were trapped within the painted canvas. She reached the end of the hallway and stepped into a large, circular room. The candle sat on a pedestal in the center, its flickering flame casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. The room was sparsely furnished, containing only a few worn chairs and a small, round table. But what caught her attention was the object on the table. It was a book, bound in black leather and clasped shut with a tarnished silver lock. The book seemed to radiate a strange energy, a palpable sense of power that both intrigued and terrified her. She approached the table cautiously, her eyes fixed on the book. As she drew closer, she noticed that the cover was inscribed with strange symbols, swirling glyphs that seemed to writhe and shift before her eyes. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to give it a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. If you want to hear more stories like this, make sure to subscribe to Storietional. There are always exciting and thrilling tales waiting for you here. A voice echoed in her mind, not spoken aloud, but implanted directly into her thoughts. Open it. Emily recoiled, her heart pounding in her chest. Who was speaking to her? Was it the same entity that had been whispering her name in the street? Open it, the voice repeated, its tone more insistent this time. The answers you seek lie within. She hesitated, torn between her fear and her burning desire to understand what was happening to her. What if the book contained something dangerous, something that would trap her in this nightmare forever. But the voice was relentless, its persuasive power growing stronger with each passing moment. "Don't be afraid, Emily. I am here to help you. Trust me." Against her better judgment, she reached out and touched the book. The silver lock felt cold and slick beneath her fingers. As she fumbled with the clasp, she noticed that the symbols on the cover were growing brighter, pulsating with an eerie light. With a click, the lock sprang open. She hesitated for a moment longer, then slowly, deliberately, opened the book. The pages were filled with handwritten text, scrawled in a spidery script that seemed to dance before her eyes. The language was unfamiliar, yet somehow she could understand it. It was as if the words were being translated directly into her mind. The book told a story, a dark and twisted tale of a hidden realm, a place where the laws of physics were bent and broken, where reality itself was fluid and unstable. It spoke of ancient beings, entities of immense power who dwelled in the shadows, manipulating the fabric of existence to their own inscrutable ends. As she read, she began to understand that this place, this nightmare she had stumbled into, was not a random accident. It was a carefully constructed prison, a place designed to hold something or someone. The voice returned, its tone now laced with urgency. "Read faster, Emily. Time is running out. They know you're here." She flipped through the pages frantically, skimming the text, trying to grasp the full scope of the story. The book spoke of a chosen one, a person who possessed a unique ability to see through the veil of illusion, to perceive the true nature of reality. And then, she read something that made her blood run cold. A description of the chosen one, a list of their traits and characteristics. It was a perfect match. It was a description of her. The book claimed that she was the key to unlocking the secrets of this realm, the one who could either save it from destruction or condemn it to eternal darkness. As she absorbed this information, a wave of dizziness washed over her. The room began to spin, the walls closing in around her. The candle flickered and died, plunging her into complete darkness. A new voice echoed in her mind, a voice that was cold, cruel, and utterly devoid of compassion. "You shouldn't have opened that book, Emily. Now, you belong to us," she screamed, but no sound escaped her lips. She was trapped, alone, at the mercy of whatever dark forces controlled this twisted realm, and her journey had just begun. The darkness pressed in, thick and suffocating, stealing her breath and clouding her thoughts. The cold voice resonated around her, a chilling promise of pain and despair. "You cannot hide from us, Emily. We have been waiting for you." A faint, phosphorescent glow began to emanate from the book in her hands, illuminating the room with an eerie, otherworldly light. The portraits on the walls seemed to shift and writhe, their eyes burning with a malevolent hunger. The shadows danced and twisted, taking on grotesque shapes. Suddenly, the door behind her creaked open, revealing a figure silhouetted against the faint twilight of the alleyway. The figure was tall and gaunt, its limbs elongated and unnaturally thin. Its head was obscured by shadows, but Emily could sense its gaze fixed upon her, cold and predatory. "Leave her alone," the voice from before echoed in her mind, weaker now, but still defiant. "She is under my protection." The gaunt figure chuckled, a dry, rasping sound that sent shivers down Emily's spine. "Your protection is worthless here, old friend. She belongs to us now." The prophecy has been fulfilled. 2 more figures emerged from the darkness, flanking the first. They were equally grotesque, their bodies twisted and deformed in ways that defied human anatomy. Their eyes glowed with a malevolent light, reflecting the phosphorescent glow of the book. Emily stumbled backward, her heart pounding in her chest. She was surrounded, trapped with no escape. The book in her hands felt heavy and cold, a burden she could no longer bear. "Give us the book, Emily," the gaunt figure commanded, its voice dripping with venom, "and we might consider making your end swift." Tears streamed down her face. She didn't want to die. She didn't want to be trapped in this nightmare forever. But she knew that if she surrendered the book, she would be handing herself over to these creatures, condemning herself to an even worse fate. With a surge of adrenaline, she clutched the book tighter, refusing to let go. "No," she whispered, her voice trembling with fear. "I won't let you have it." The figures hissed in unison, their eyes burning brighter. They began to advance towards her, their movements slow and deliberate, like predators stalking their prey. Suddenly, the ground beneath her feet began to tremble. The walls of the room shook violently, and the portraits on the walls shattered into 1,000 pieces. The phosphorescent glow of the book intensified, bathing the room in a blinding light. The gaunt figures recoiled, shielding their eyes from the intense glare. "What is happening?" One of them shrieked, its voice filled with panic. The voice from before, the one that had guided her to the book, echoed in her mind, stronger now, infused with a newfound power. "It is time, Emily. Unleash the power within." She didn't know what that meant, but she trusted the voice. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and focused all her energy on the book in her hands. She imagined the energy flowing from the book into her body, filling her with strength and power. The wave of warmth washed over her, followed by an electric jolt that coursed through her veins. She felt herself changing, transforming. Her senses heightened, her muscles tensed, and a surge of power coursed through her veins. She opened her eyes, and the world around her seemed sharper, clearer. She could see the fear in the eyes of the gaunt figures, the subtle shifts in the shadows, the intricate patterns on the floor. Without thinking, she raised her hand and pointed it towards the figures. A bolt of pure energy shot forth, striking the nearest figure in the chest. The creature screamed in agony as its body disintegrated into dust. The other figures recoiled in horror, their eyes wide with disbelief. They had underestimated her. They had underestimated the power of the Chosen One. Emily felt a surge of confidence coursing through her veins. She was no longer afraid. She was in control. "You cannot stop us," the gaunt figure hissed, its voice trembling with rage. "We are Legion. We are eternal." "Then I'll just have to make sure you're not," Emily retorted, her voice firm and resolute. She raised her hand again, ready to unleash another blast of energy. But before she could strike, the gaunt figure lunged forward, its clawed hand reaching for the book. Emily dodged the attack, narrowly avoiding the creature's grasp. She stumbled backward, tripping over a broken piece of pottery. She fell to the ground, the book slipping from her grasp. It skittered across the floor, landing at the feet of the gaunt figure. The creature smirked, its eyes gleaming with triumph. It reached down and snatched up the book. "It's over, Emily," it sneered. "You have lost. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to give it a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. If you want to hear more stories like this, make sure to subscribe to Storietional. There are always exciting and thrilling tales waiting for you here. But as the creature reached for the book, a shadow detached itself from the wall and darted towards it. The shadow was small and agile, moving with incredible speed. It leaped onto the gaunt figure's back and began to claw at its face. The creature screamed in pain, dropping the book to the floor. Emily scrambled to her feet, her eyes wide with surprise. The shadow was familiar, somehow. It moved with a grace and agility that reminded her of. Then, she realized. It was her own shadow, somehow come to life. Her shadow, her ally, was fighting to protect her. And in this bizarre, terrifying world, that was all the help she needed. The fight was far from over, but now she had a chance. A chance to understand what was happening to her, a chance to escape this nightmare, and a chance to finally find her way home. The gaunt figure, momentarily distracted by Emily's shadow tearing at its face, thrashed wildly, trying to dislodge the unexpected assailant. It stumbled backward, knocking into one of its companions, sending both of them sprawling. The book lay forgotten on the dusty floor. Emily seized the opportunity. She lunged forward, scooping up the book just as her shadow leaped back, leaving deep, bloody gashes on the gaunt figure's face. The creature roared in fury, momentarily blinded. Emily clutched the book tightly. The phosphorescent glow intensified, and she felt a renewed surge of power coursing through her veins. She understood now. The book wasn't just a source of information, it was a conduit, a key to unlocking her own latent abilities. The gaunt figure, its face dripping with blood, regained its composure. "Kill her!" it shrieked to its remaining companion. The creature lunged, its clawed hands outstretched. Emily stood her ground, her eyes fixed on the approaching figure. This time, she was ready. As the creature drew closer, Emily focused her energy, channeling the power of the book. She felt a surge of heat building within her, a raw, untamed force waiting to be unleashed. She extended her hand, and a torrent of pure energy erupted from her fingertips, striking the creature full force. The creature screamed, its body engulfed in flames. It collapsed to the floor, a charred and smoking husk. The gaunt figure stared in disbelief, its face contorted with rage and fear. "Impossible," it hissed. "You cannot control such power." "Maybe not," Emily replied, her voice steady despite the tremor of fear that still lingered within her. "But I can use it." She raised her hand again, ready to unleash another blast of energy. The gaunt figure hesitated, realizing it was outmatched. It glanced around the room, searching for an escape. Suddenly, a section of the wall behind the gaunt figure shimmered and dissolved, revealing a dark, swirling vortex. The creature grinned, its eyes gleaming with triumph. "You may have won this battle, Emily," it sneered, "but the war is far from over. We will meet again." With a final, defiant glare, the gaunt figure stepped into the vortex and disappeared. The swirling portal closed behind it, leaving Emily alone in the room. The phosphorescent glow of the book began to fade, and the room slowly returned to normal. The broken pottery and shattered portraits lay scattered on the floor, a testament to the battle that had just taken place. Emily slumped against the wall, exhausted but alive. Her shadow, now silent and still, returned to its place beside her. She stared at the book in her hands, her mind racing with questions. What was this place? Who were those creatures? And what was her role in all of this? The voice that had guided her before returned, its tone now gentler, more reassuring. "You are safe for now, Emily, but you must leave this place. They will be back." "But where do I go?" Emily asked, her voice barely a whisper. "And what am I supposed to do?" "Follow the path that is laid out before you," the voice replied. "The book will guide you. Trust your instincts, and never give up hope." Emily took a deep breath, steeling herself for the journey ahead. She clutched the book tightly and turned towards the door. As she stepped out of the circular room and back into the hallway, she noticed something she hadn't seen before. A faint light shimmered at the far end of the hallway, beckoning her forward. She hesitated for a moment, then started walking towards the light, her heart filled with a mixture of fear and determination. She didn't know what awaited her on the other side, but she knew that she had to keep moving, to keep fighting. She was the chosen one, the key to unlocking the secrets of this realm, and she wouldn't let anything stand in her way. The game had changed, and now she was playing to win. The light at the end of the hallway grew brighter, promising a glimmer of hope in the oppressive darkness. Her journey continued. The light at the end of the hallway pulsed with an inviting warmth, a stark contrast to the chilling darkness that clung to the ancient house. As Emily drew closer, the hallway walls seemed to peel away, revealing a shimmering portal, not unlike the one the gaunt figure had escaped through, but radiating a welcoming energy. Hesitantly, she stepped through the portal. She found herself in a vast, sun-drenched meadow, the air alive with the buzz of insects and the sweet scent of wildflowers. Rolling hills stretched as far as the eye could see, dotted with ancient trees that whispered secrets in the gentle breeze. It was a world of vibrant color and life, a paradise compared to the decaying house. But even here, a sense of unease lingered. The shadows cast by the trees seemed a little too long, the silence between the birdsongs a little too profound. This beauty, she sensed, was a fragile facade. A figure emerged from the tree lane, an old woman with eyes as bright and knowing as the midday sun. Her face was etched with wrinkles that told tales of countless seasons, and she leaned heavily on a gnarled staff. "Welcome, Emily," the woman said, her voice raspy but kind. "I have been expecting you." "Who are you?" Emily asked, clutching the book tighter. "They call me Alara, the Weaver of Ways. I am a guardian of this realm and many others." She gestured towards the book in Emily's hand. "That book is a key, not just to your own power, but to the balance between worlds. And it is in grave danger." "The creatures, they want it," Emily said, remembering the horror of the confrontation. "They do," Alara confirmed. "They are the Void Bringers, creatures born from the nothingness between worlds. They seek to unravel the fabric of reality, to plunge everything into eternal chaos." Alara explained that Emily was a descendant of a long line of keepers, individuals chosen to protect the book and the realms it connects. The prophecy foretold Emily's arrival, her awakening, and the coming battle against the Voidbringers. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to give it a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. If you want to hear more stories like this, make sure to subscribe to Storietional. There are always exciting and thrilling tales waiting for you here. "You are not alone, Emily," Alara said, sensing the young woman's fear. "There are others who will fight alongside you. But first, you must learn to control your power. The book will guide you. Use it to understand the energies that flow through this realm, the forces that bind it together." Alara spent weeks teaching Emily. She learned to harness the energy of the meadow, to communicate with the trees, to weave spells of protection and illusion. She discovered the true extent of her powers, the ability to manipulate the very fabric of reality. The book became her teacher, her guide, and her most trusted companion. But the Void Bringers were relentless. They sent their minions to harass and test Emily, forcing her to hone her skills and face her fears. Each encounter made her stronger, more determined. One day, Alara sensed a gathering storm. The Void Bringers were preparing for a final assault. "They are coming, Emily," Alara said, her voice grim. "They are gathering their forces, preparing to tear down the barrier between worlds." Emily knew what she had to do. She stood tall, her eyes blazing with newfound courage. "Then we will be ready for them." Alara led Emily to an ancient stone circle, the heart of the meadow's power. There, they met the others, a grizzled warrior with a magical sword, a cunning rogue with unparalleled agility, and a wise healer with the gift of mending both body and spirit. They were a ragtag group, but they shared a common purpose: to protect the realms from the Voidbringers. The battle was fierce and brutal. The Voidbringers swarmed the meadow, their grotesque forms tearing through the landscape. Emily and her companions fought valiantly, wielding their powers and skills to repel the invaders. Emily, channeling the power of the book, unleashed torrents of energy, incinerating the Voidbringers with blinding light. But they kept coming, wave after wave, their numbers seemingly endless. The gaunt figure reappeared, its face now a horrifying mask of scars. "You cannot win, Emily," it hissed. "We are inevitable." Emily faced the creature, her heart filled with a righteous fury. "Then I'll make sure you're the last of your kind." She engaged the gaunt figure in a fierce duel, their powers clashing in a blinding display of energy. Emily fought with a ferocity she never knew she possessed, drawing on the strength of her companions and the power of the book. Finally, with a desperate lunge, she managed to disarm the gaunt figure. She raised the book high above her head, channeling all her energy into a single, devastating blast. The light erupted from the book, engulfing the gaunt figure in a searing white inferno. The creature screamed, its body dissolving into nothingness. With the gaunt figure defeated, the remaining Void Bringers faltered. They sensed the power emanating from Emily, the overwhelming force of her will. They turned and fled, disappearing back into the shadows from whence they came. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. The Void Bringers would return, Emily knew, but she was ready. She had found her purpose, her strength, and her companions. She looked out over the ravaged meadow, her heart filled with a mixture of sorrow and hope. The world was wounded, but it would heal, and she would be there to protect it, to guide it, to ensure that the darkness never consumed it again. Alara approached her, a gentle smile on her face. "You have done well, Emily. You have proven yourself worthy of the mantle of keeper." Emily nodded, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "The journey is just beginning," she said. She closed the book gently, feeling its power humming beneath her fingertips. She knew that the path ahead would be long and arduous, filled with danger and uncertainty. But she was no longer afraid. She had found her place in the world, her purpose in life. And as she turned to face the rising sun, she knew that she was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The prophecy had been fulfilled, but her story was just beginning. The realms needed her, and she would not fail them. The end? For now, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Storietional for more spine-tingling stories that bring every word to life. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a tale. Bell sparkles.